already a few comments about the sheep with 5 legs, or what I will call a millipede, that is requested of us as being scientists. I use this slide because it basically shows what I do. I'm an astronomer, I do scientific research, I'm head of a department as well. And talking about scientific happiness, this week I traveled to the Canary island of La Palma, which has a huge observatory on it, to observe the stars. I was supposed to leave on Monday morning, but flights were cancelled because of fog. So even though I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I could go back to sleep. Well, not really, right? As scientists, you start working again. On Tuesday morning, I woke up again at 5 o'clock to actually catch the plane. Then travel to La Palma on Tuesday, observe from Tuesday to Wednesday night, right? Then sleep for a few hours during Wednesday during the day. Then observe again for the whole night, and then travel back to be here in time. So yesterday evening I came home at 11 o'clock after 30 hours of no sleep. I should feel tired. I do feel tired. But I do feel happy, because those 2 nights on the mountain, they were good. I got to do what I have a passion for, doing research. The skies were clear, it was fantastic weather, the telescope worked, we got beautiful data, so I'm fine. I'm scientifically happy, right? Even though I might be a little bit tired. But that's it. I mean, that's what I do, and that's why I chose this field. Now, introduction to myself. I got my PhD in Amsterdam in 1999, was a postdoc at Harvard, and then came back to Radboud University, or came back to the Netherlands, to Radboud University, to start a new department in 2002. And in the old VU system, I would never have been where I am now, because you need to be 14 years as an associate professor, assistant professor before you become associate professor. That did not happen, luckily. I became a full professor in 2006 and have been head of the department ever since. We are now 70 people. So you could say this is a successful business enterprise. So I'm a child of the current system. But I also criticize the current system, because I think we have gone too far, too much. So I'm head of a department. I'm also chairing the Dutch Research School for Astronomy, NOVA, one of the top research schools by the same ministry. 1999 it was founded. So yeah, I deal with a lot of the policy things and management things as well. The question before us is, what is a professor? What do we expect of professors, of scientific researchers? Do we expect them to be a bookish recluse? And the literature people and maybe other fans will recognize Tolkien in here, talking about valorization, right? He was a professor of medieval English, but we all know him as the writer of the books of the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Or do we want to be a boy wonder TV hero? This is Brian Cox, a university professor in Manchester, but he's hosting lots of very nice and exciting science programs on TV. Where do we want to be, right, on this scale? A kamergeleerde, as we say in Dutch, or a media star. And that is the millipede thing that we are struggling with. Because as a professor, assistant, associate, full professor, doesn't matter, we are asked to be many things. We are asked to be researchers, but I put them here at the bottom, because sometimes the feeling is that, the emphasis is more on those things up there. Researcher and teacher, that's what we do. Those are our core skills. And that is something we should not forget. Because the emphasis nowadays is often so much on valorization, what I call money maker. But it's more than that. I do know it, but it's not always recognized. But I try to be a little bit on the extreme side of the spectrum here, just to emphasize the point. Money maker, communicator. I feel a little bit out of my comfort zone, but not too much. Manager and politician. And how do we balance that? And I don't think it's about time management. It certainly helps. Most researchers are very poor time managers. But it is more about the Christmas tree, or the millipede, or the sheep with 5 legs that we are being asked. Now going to the money maker, I know it's not about valorization per se, but it is becoming very central in the way we do research and also the way careers are developing at universities. And that is a bad thing. University funding is way too much reliant for research on external grants. And I'll show you an example of my own department. Getting grants, currently, is synonymous to success. You are successful as a researcher when you get grants, right? And we put people on tenure track positions, and then the condition for tenure is that they get a VD or a Vici or an ERC starting grant or whatever. And if they don't get it, they don't get promoted higher up, because they fail as a researcher. And in everything I've said about success, there's nothing about research quality, right? About the content of what they do. No, it's about getting these grants. And people like Teun and me and others here, we're often also on the other side of the table, in those committees deciding about the grants. And we all know that certainly in the last round there is a randomness to whoever gets the grant. Because it's tiny little things that have nothing to do with research quality, but more often with valorization or impact or anything else that actually decides whether somebody gets the grant, yes or no. Right? So it is, and then often it actually depends on how successful you've been in the past in getting grants. Right? So past reputation, now at NWO top scheme with 60% is past reputation. Right? Past performance. 60%. And only 40% is about scientific quality. Something wrong there, right? So if somehow you stumble on this spiral staircase upwards, right, it's very difficult to get on it again, but once you're on it, it's more like a conveyor belt, right? You go up automatically. And that is wrong, right? That is not what we want. The average success rate in all these grant schemes is about 10% in the Netherlands. So that means that 90% of the proposals are being rejected. Not because of lack of quality, but lack of funding. Right? And we all agree that a much more healthy ratio would be something like 30%, 25 to 30%. But it also means that those who can write are successful. Now I can hire Elroy to teach me how to write. But fundamentally there's something wrong. Right? Because some people have these skills and they are better in actually putting words on paper and expressing their thoughts in a way that, you know, these committees actually sort of understand this. But they might not be the best scientists. They might not be the best researchers. And those are the ones that we want as a country for the development of research. So it is very dependent now, and this combination makes that those who are successful are the ones that actually know how to sell their stuff. So sometimes you feel more like a second-hand car dealer than as a scientist. The career paths at universities are very dependent on this success. As I said, you know, often the deciding factor in whether somebody becomes an associate professor or a full professor is the amount of money that they brought in. And it has to be in big chunks as well. I recently proposed one of my staff members to become a full professor, and the reaction from the dean was, but he didn't get any VD or Vici or VD he did get, Vici or EUC advanced grant. I said, no, but he brought in 2.5 million euros over the last 3-4 years. Right? No, it's the big things, the personal grants, that are the ones that stick. And the funding schemes are very geared to relevance. I'll come back to that as well. My point to the HR people as well, and also to the other heads of department, is that this puts enormous stress, especially on the junior, and junior in the sense of the academic rankings and not age, junior staff. They feel, I see around me, that they feel enormous pressure to succeed in this system. Right? And not to succeed as a scientist in doing the best quality research, or the best teaching, but to succeed in getting money, in this money-making machine. The balance is off. These are the numbers for my department. In 2010, 2015, we've been able to attract 29 million euros in external funding. Over the same period, the university funding to the department, sort of the stable funding, was 5 million euros. Right? So this is a factor of 6 off. And I am very unhappy about that. Of course I'm happy that we got almost 30 million euros to the department. Great, fantastic. But I see that it comes in big chunks. 40 million of these were an ERC Synergy grant. This is about the biggest you can get in Europe, right? But it's off this balance. It's desertification. It comes in bigger chunks in smaller groups. Right? There's people that lose out, and not because they're not good scientists, but because they, either missed a step on the spiral staircase, or they are not that good in writing proposals. So our research currently is too dependent on external grants. And also related to that, the whole university development, career development. So as a manager, what do I do as a manager? Well, the grant dependency means that I juggle. I juggle grants and I juggle projects. And it is juggling with chainsaws, right? It's not with nice balls, right? It's chainsaws. And if you drop one, real accidents happen. And real accidents happen to people. I don't care that much about projects or some funding or that I run a deficit for a year or something like that. It happens. I try to prevent it, but it happens. But the real point is that it actually is to people, because I'm trying to keep the people motivated, even though the system doesn't help. And I try to prevent burnout in junior staff, and that is a serious problem. I see way too many junior staff at the postdoc, associate, assistant professor level that I feel are burned out. So I'm not surprised about the numbers that were shown of about 25 to 30 people, 30% of the people showing burnout symptoms. And I think that was for full professors. I think it's even higher for the junior staff. On the positive side, I should say that we don't value science enough in the Netherlands, and also the effect it has on our economy. Science is for the Netherlands a huge brain gainer. We attract a lot of bright students and staff from across the world. These are the numbers for my department, which might be different for law. I agree. Yeah? But this is about 1/3 is Dutch. That's the blue. And I didn't even count how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 different nationalities. It doesn't really matter where they're from. The second biggest is Germany. That's partly because we're on the German border. But it's basically from all over the world. These people come to the Netherlands because we do well in science. Right? We are a country that still is doing well, despite that the investments are lower than the countries around us. So somehow, a very Dutch thing, we are able to sit on the front row for just a dime. But it's being pushed too far. And it will go wrong at some point. So this is a positive thing, and I think also that it would be good if, if the value of investments in research and education are properly taken into account in our economic models. I know that still the CPB, the Central Bureau for Planning, actually values investments in astronomy, I was going to say, but not just astronomy, in science and education at 0 in the economic models for our government, right? So it's very easy to cut, because you don't lose anything, right? If it's already 0, you can't lose anything. So that is something that needs to change, because then it may be seen as attractive to invest in research and education. So as a communicator and a politician, sometimes they go hand in hand, we are asked to show how relevant and the grand challenges. And it is very difficult. And as an astronomer, I feel sort of torn between two worlds, because on the one hand, I do big science, big data, use the most advanced technology that we have, enormous databases. Companies like IBM are interested because we have these enormous databases. On the other hand, I'm an astronomer. I philosophize about the universe, and I saw here on the wall, I don't think these are yours, right, Ellen? This is just, there's something about organization. I haven't read that, but there's a quote from one of our poets in the Netherlands, Jules Deelder, that says, "The further one looks, the bigger it seemed." But then in Dutch, and then it's actually a nice sentence. And it is about the universe, right? There is an impact of what I do as an astronomer on the way we perceive the world around us. There's a philosophical part to it. And so I can very much sympathize with the theologians and feeling, you know, what's my relevance in this? And we justify this astronomers by saying, you know, we have Wi-Fi and we have cell phones, and they all work because of techniques once developed in astronomy. Right? But on the other hand, I would say, you know, how many of you have seen The Martian? Or, sorry, I just lost the name, the movie about Interstellar, right? Or, you know, wondered about our place in the universe, and that is an impact we have on society as well. It's not for nothing that I show a picture here of us as NOVA collaborating with Tata Steel. This is the director of Tata Steel. We collaborate with them as well. And this minister who's standing there is not the Minister of Science and Education, but is our Minister of Economic Affairs, right? Well, that's where I become out of my comfort zone, right? I look very uncomfortable here standing there with Maria Lamers and Henk Kamp. And he was actually quite nice. He asked all about why we do this as astronomers and stuff like that. But it's like, come on, is this my job, right, to do this? And I've met too many of them over the last year and a half that it's very uncomfortable. This is what we do, right? Talent, development and research. That is what we do as professors. And those are our core skills, and that is what we need to re-emphasize. Right? This is La Palma. Those of you who have been to the new James Bond movie, at one point they're in this crater with a few telescopes around it. They reused footage they took for Quantum of Solace, which was shot at the observatory, and sort of digitally put it in. Anyway, that's what I do. That's what I love. That's valorization as well, right? We do groundbreaking research and expand humanity's knowledge base. That is what we do. And not just in astronomy, but in all sciences. We try to find out things that we have never known before. Those are the core skills of scientists. Please let us remember that again in everything we do. Anyway, so science and society. I think currently a professor is a juggling millipede. The emphasis is way too much on acquisition and funding, external funding I should say. Which puts enormous pressure on the junior students. And there is a societal overshoot on relevance and profit. I think that it was very healthy that we moved away from the ivory tower model, you know, and that we emphasized that other skills were needed as well, and that there should be a clearer focus on, you know, what is it that we do, but we have overshot. Right? And the emphasis is now only on those things, is the feeling I have often. And I think that one way of solving it, I have very few answers, I have a lot of questions, but I have very few answers. But I think one way to do it is that I actually have the universities be more independent again in making choices about research, about which research, about who, and less dependent on external grants and national and international grants. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.